Hello and welcome to this edition of Bayou Time. I'm your host, Keith Whiteside, licensed clinical social worker. Very excited about knowing what's coming up as we tell you a little bit about some of our community events as we celebrate 200 years here with the parish. Welcome into the program. Welcome back to the program, Jason Bergeron. Jason, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us, man.
I appreciate it very much. Next to him, Noah Lerat. Noah, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. And you guys do so many different things. We could list lots of titles for both of you guys. But y'all are both very involved in this 200-year Bicentennial celebration. And we're starting off with something we're going to kind of do every month, but you guys get to really kick it off. So tell us a little bit about how that's come to be and how excited it is for y'all to be able to share a little bit of that on April 7th.
Yeah, so they decided to a certain amount of categories, and we can maybe put that as a graphic here. But the Chamber of Commerce is really working on the commerce category.
Okay.
And so we're going to kick off on April 7th at the Civic Center at 6 to 7 p.m. In Meeting Room 3. The Chamber of Commerce and the group that's been working on this is going to put together. We have commerce is what we're going to cover, and how commerce affected the 200 years of Terrebonne Parish. And so we decided to divide up in some categories, and so we have agriculture, fur trapping, seafood, logging, oil and gas, shipbuilding, medical, tourism, military, and mercantile/retail. So we basically have a person that's going to be covering each one of those categories at the event. Our presentation is presented by South Louisiana Financial Services. Okay. Gordy Dove's going to get up and speak and kind of do the introduction and hand it off to our group. And then we're putting together a presentation that's going to it's going to be video, and it's going to be some artifacts that we're going to have in person. Okay. And kind of give you that, things you can kind of look at and listen to. But we got some great people from around the parish to talk. Along with the stuff we're doing, and kind of taking it as a timeline through the 200 years. Right.
And it's something that we're going to do every month. But again, like you said, we're going to start with this focus on commerce. And Jason, for you, past chair of the chamber, it means a great deal to you. But you've got a lot of the history that you've been able to study about how that's affected commerce, right?
Yes. It's interesting to see. The thing I keep seeing in all the different categories is the resiliency, the way that we adapted. Something presented itself, good or bad, and then we persevered through that. And so it's really interesting to see how, you always hear about the Cajun ingenuity. Well, our Cajun ingenuity took it from one industry to another, and it's like, well, this is no longer available. What are we going to do now? And where we went from fur trapping to seafood, from seafood to moving oil and gas products around. It was really interesting to see how people adapted and stepped up to the challenge every time.
It's really neat. You're basically describing some of the things that we may have had a conversation with 2 or 3 generations above us, when they both had to walk uphill to school 5 miles both ways.
In the snow?
Yeah, in the snow, which we know it's only snowed here twice. So it's really, but it's always interesting to me, but this is a way to really wrap your head around what used to be and how those changes came to be in all these different areas. Right? It's kind of interesting that this is one that's going to be, and they're going to do it each month, and we'll play that out and roll that out for everybody a little later. But for you guys, this is kind of our starting point. It's got to be an honor that they started with you, huh?
It is, and I know when I got involved, knowing Noah as a historian that he is, he was one of the first people I called, and I was like, if anybody knows anything about the history and how we've gone along our way, and if you go to Noah's distillery, they got so much history in the walls. That building itself is 100 years old. It's just amazing to see what they've done to preserve that history, but also take it to that next level, again, kind of consistent with commerce in Terrebonne Parish for the last 200 years.
Wow, and it's so ironic. It was 40 years ago that I worked in that building. The building was only 60 years old back then, interestingly enough. But Noah, you being involved in this also brings another level of that history that you love so much.
Yeah, we all got to know our history because we're going to repeat it at some point or another. And the great thing about knowing our parish's history is that we've experienced a lot of obstacles, just like we experienced this past year with COVID and Ida, and every time we bounce back. And it's comforting to know that, you really don't think about that whenever something like that happens to you, but people have time and time again experienced hardship and overcame it. And, I was glad to see a lot of innovation coming out of our parish, a lot of forward thinking. And with some of these interviews that Daniel Babin of JAMA Marketing put together, we talked to some pillars of the industries that we covered, and these guys have been around for a long time, and it's always been forward thinking. They talked about what's next. So that's something that persists throughout time, despite what the industry is. If you look at Terrebonne Parish economy, it's in eras. First it was agriculture, then it was seafood when ice came about, then oil and gas, and that stayed like that for a long time, and we're pretty much still at that point. Fur trapping, logging, those are industries that all have came and went. Oil will go one day. It'll be gone. So the only thing that's going to stay is the good people of the good earth, our most precious resource. And as long as we have that, we'll be okay. But, if we don't start addressing some other issues around quality of life, we might not have that resource anymore either. So, in 2020, when we did the last census, it was the first time we had a population drop in Terrebonne Parish in a long, long time. So that's concerning. But besides that, we can look at this timeline that we're going to present next Thursday. People can see, what we've done and what we're capable of, and maybe we can repeat some of our successes after this last hard year we had.
Yeah, and just Jason, both of you and Noah mentioned about the resiliency of the good people in and around the good earth. And that's one of the things that, if we thought it was difficult for us to overcome, 10 days without electricity, imagine what it was like some years back before anybody had electricity. And that's some of that walk that we'll do in celebrating the 200 years. We're excited about what April 7th is going to look like. Jason, tell us a little bit about what people can expect. I know both of you are presenting, but y'all have a whole list of different aspects of commerce that we're going to talk about. And y'all referenced it earlier about how we grew from one area to another, but let's talk a little bit about what that's going to look like on April 7th.
We found it was important, so we titled this Good Earth, Good Business.
Right.
And we thought it was important to take you, through a timeline of when things happened in the parish. And so our presentation is going to have a video timeline with excerpts of interviews where we talk about certain things. Like I said, I'm covering the shipbuilding segment of it. So we're going to talk about, what caused shipbuilding to get started as related to oil and gas exploration and moving products around. And so, we want to make sure everybody understands this is free to the public.
Right.
So it's at the Civic Center, April 7th from 6 to 7 in meeting room 3. It is free to the public. And we're going to have artifacts that are related to, for example, we have model trawl boats and rigs. We got Gulf Islands bringing us big old rigs. Shell's bringing us a rig. LeBruck Brothers is bringing us some towboats. We're going to actually have a towboat that looks like a converted shrimp boat, and that's where you had the conversation of how things went from trapping to shrimping to then a shrimp boat became a tugboat. And then some of those boats got converted to supply boats and really worked offshore. And so we're going to have some different various boats, a supply boat from Edison Suez, and basically, kind of look at how things evolved and talk about, how it started with one oil well, one platform, one vessel. We got to move these products around, and we adapted to the ever-changing needs of our community, of the business industry.
Well, and I know, interestingly enough, offshore, and talking about seafood, no, you may be able to mention it, but some of those rigs that had a lot of space and some of those oil wells that had some space, they would actually convert that to drying shrimp on the platforms.
The great thing about this little research project that we just did is that you learn about all the different influences from all over the world that happen right here in Terrebonne Parish. Shrimp drying was introduced by a fellow from Canton, China, back in the 1800s.
Right.
Okay, and that's how that first got here. A lot of people view that as a very Cajun activity, which it is, but it just shows you how connected we are and how outside influences have always shaped who we are in Terrebonne Parish.
Right.
And that's what commerce is too. Commerce shapes everything from culture to tourism to quality of life to everything that's around us. So it's really awesome that we get to do our first presentation of the Bicentennial celebration, and it's going to be a monthly deal up until October 15th when we have a big old parade to celebrate the 200-year anniversary of our parish.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, and that's just really neat. I tell you, it's kind of cool to find out history and those kinds of things. The fact that where the distillery is, I worked there, and that's how I learned about the shrimp industry, and I learned about drying shrimp and what dried shrimp are, and how that's progressed.
Speaking of that, we have a lot of innovation that came out of this parish that affected worldwide industry. The first shrimp drying machine was designed here. Shrimp peeling machine, shrimp peeling machine was first. A lot of innovation that came out of Terrebonne Parish, and to see that throughout the years is really inspiring for my generation.
Well, and look, just machines that they use, and they don't realize it, but there's a beating process that goes on with the dried shrimp. Those first machines were invented down here. Just really cool to be able to see. And this is going to go on every month.
Correct.
And so it's going to be located in the same place every month that we know of.
It's going to be moved between some are going to be at Civic Center and some are going to be at the library.
At the library, okay.
So
And so
there's gonna
we're
be-
going to come on and let people know about that. So I was just teasing the guys, seeing if they were going to come on every month, but actually we're going to start here on January the 7th, and the next one coming up is going to be it's going to be April 7th,
April 7th.
and the next one in May, and so it's going to be kind of early in the month that people can look forward to that. Tell me what one thing you learned when you did the research that you didn't know of before, Jason.
Just man, there was so many things that I guess just how the different industries. I knew that at one point shrimp boats became supply boats and everything. But
Okay.
To understand more of the kind of the Terrebonne's influence more into probably the tug industry.
Okay.
Of more of the supply boats kind of being Lafourche and tugs being in Terrebonne Parish, and when you look at that and you look at one point Huey P. Long built a bridge that was too short for larger vessels to travel underneath, and he basically created the tug industry at some level, and that Terrebonne Parish was involved, kind of with that, and it was just interesting to see the time frames and look at the old photos and when you see some of the dedications and the fact that we're working on this bandstand that's going to accumulate at this 200th year anniversary. It's just amazing how that comes together.
Right, and how it's all connected. How about you, Noah?
It's pretty cool to see, you talk about unintended consequences, and that's how a lot of our industries got shaped.
Right.
For instance, the place you used to work, that started off as a candy and cigar shop.
Right.
And people started bartering with them with dried shrimp. Leopold Bloom recognized a market for it in New Orleans, and here we are 100 years later, and they're still in business drying shrimp. So it's really fascinating to speak on that. We will have a trivia aspect of our presentation.
Thanks for mentioning.
With prizes at the end. So make sure you come out. Take some
notes.
Take some notes, pay attention. There will be a prize at the end if you answer your trivia questions correctly.
Okay, and that's always a whole lot of fun, knowing that there's going to be a game, and so it's like a test at the end, right? But it's a game at the end.
That's right.
Just to test to see if you were paying attention, and so it's a really good thing. Well, I'm excited that both of you got, since y'all have so much time on your hands with all the things that y'all are doing to raise money and help people and really make a difference in our community. Thank you for helping bring some of that education and really starting that off. Here for this anniversary of the 200th years, the Bicentennial celebration. We appreciate y'all coming on and talking about it.
Thank you, Keith. Appreciate
All right.
it.
And that'll do it for us, guys, with this particular segment. Don't go anywhere. A lot more Bayou time when we continue.